Hey guys, Kev here, and I want to talk about the new Jack Wolf Knives Kollab release. This is their first collaboration knife. The designer that they teamed up with is Chris from Cerberus Knives. Good dude, well known in the community, and has a good design language. So they teamed up, and this is what you get. You get the Jack Wolf Knives Tango. And here is the packaging. It is the standard Jack Wolf packaging. And you get your tin. Let me get this out of here. Just so you can see the artwork. I know some people want to see that. You've probably seen it in a bunch of videos. We can see JW Kollab with a K. Collaboration for the culture. And you have the two dogs kind of arm wrestling there. Tango is the name. I don't think I know what the reference is. Here are the stock bearings. We're going to talk about that. You get the cloth and you have stickers. You get two of them because that way you can use one and keep one in the box if you want. Tango. But again, I'm not sure what the reference is, if it's a Tango and Cash type reference or something else. I apologize for not getting the story on that. But it should be on their website, which I will be linking in the description. Let me leave that out so I remember to mention it. You can get the description on their website. I will link all the dealers that I have affiliate links for that sell these. If you want to use my links, it does help the channel. That is totally up to you if you want to do that. But I'll put traditional pocket knives down there. I think Blade Binge maybe carries them as well. And you can see all that in the description and in the pinned comment. But yeah, so the biggest thing with this that is different, if you're wondering, because you're probably thinking, yeah, that's another Jack Wolf locking knife. What's different about it, right? Well, the size is what's different. Let me actually grab another Jack Wolf. Should have thought of that ahead of time. Here is my Primo. And I think this was the latest locking knife release. And this is pretty much their standard size for a locking knife. Usually 3.2 inches on the blade. And you can see the size difference overall. If I line them up pivot to pivot, you have maybe 0.2 inches longer on the blade and about 1/4 inch on the handle as well. So if I grab the ruler here, our NAF's titanium ruler, we are at 3 1/4 inches on this one. And then the handle is 4 1/4 inches, okay? So that's the Primo Jack. I do love that model, by the way. Probably still available at those links, so check that out. This one is just at 3 inches on the blade and then probably 4 on the handle. Just under 4 on the handle. So you're looking at about a 7-inch knife, which honestly, for me, is the sweet spot. I really like a knife this size. The other knife I'm carrying is our Divo Knives Blade Binge exclusive. And I've been carrying this knife nonstop since they came in. This is my favorite EDC knife of all time at this point. It just indexes so freaking well. And it's fidgety and fun and lightweight and yeah. Anyway, you can see the size comparison here. They are almost identical. It's just a size that I really, really like. That 3-inch blade. I think this one's like 2.9, but you get the point. So very cool in terms of the size. That's what's different because they've always been this size. And while I like these and they are good to carry, they're lightweight. It's not like they're huge or anything. They still feel a little big for me for what I would prefer. I'd love to see all the Jack Wolf knives they've done come in around that 3-inch size and see how they would feel, because I think they'd be just about perfect for me. So That's a big thing. You do have Miami Vice camo carbon inlays, and then you have dark blasted titanium. That's that aluminum oxide blast satin hardware. You have a titanium dark blasted pocket clip. And let's see, you have a titanium backspacer, of course. And then you have S90V blade steel. I think they put the steel somewhere different this time. Yeah, they tucked it in right there. See if I can get it for you. Right there. I'll zoom in so you can see it. It's kind of in this thick-ass font, S90V. It's in that JWK font. They have their own kind of font, honestly, which is cool. You do have this front flipper here. And when I asked them about it at the Blade Show booth, they kind of said, yeah, you can front flip it, but it wasn't like a feature they were really advertising like they have in the past on these style front flippers. So I think it's more like it was in the design to be a front flipper, but it's not the most intuitive front flipper. And depending on the detent on the version you get, I think most of them tend to lean on the sort of medium strong side, which is good in my opinion. It might be a little more difficult to front flip it, but for me, I don't really have any problem with it. I just put some pressure on that, hang onto the clip, and fire it out. Left-handed, I can do the same thing. I just kind of grip the scale, and I can front flip it, no problem. You have very unique thumb studs on this. I really like the thumb studs. I'll zoom in on them so you can see it here. And they just have this really cool pattern to them. Look at the milling on there. It's got this sort of gear thing going on around the outside, and then it kind of has a little bit of a groove, I guess, around the front of the nipple, I guess you could call it. And then it's flat. And they're also very small. Like if you look at standard thumb studs, I feel like they're a lot smaller. So here is a tall boy. You guys know I pull this out a lot for comparisons and such, but you can see the size of the thumb stud is just, try to match those up better. I'm going to cut myself here, but whatever. You can see it's a lot bigger on this. And I think this is basically a standard thumb stud size. Here's a prototype of the small boy, which is going to go into production soon. And those are a little bit smaller maybe, and more in line with that. So maybe the size of the knife determines it, but these are still a little bit bigger. So I really like these thumb studs. They're really, the texture is pretty aggressive, so they grab really well. My finger kind of just catches on them extremely well. As you can see here, it's kind of hard to miss them. I don't think I would ever slide off. And I think thumb studs are very important to a design. If you're going to do thumb studs, I should say, the texture on them is very important. That's what I'm trying to say. Because I hate thumb studs when I'm like this, and I was trying to slide off it, and the whole knife just slid up. But like, you can't just slide off of it. Your finger is literally getting caught, and it's like pulling my skin back. And I mean that in a good way, because I'm obviously trying to just tug on it. I have the blade locked down here. But if you just use it like normal, that is going to catch your finger and allow you to just fire that out. I honestly don't even think the detent matters in that case. So the thumb studs are excellent. I can reverse flick it left-handed easily. I can reverse flick it right-handed easily. The action is good on the drop. It'll want to swing down like that. Now, let's talk about the bearings, because I did have to take this knife apart and swap the bearings out. Here they are. I'll show you. Their OEM is now making their own sort of attempt at skiff bearings, I guess. They are a solid cage. So you have this solid brass cage, but it's still made out of brass versus phosphor bronze like a skiff would be. But it is pretty cool. Another big difference on this knife is the size of the bearings. So on every other Jack Wolf locking knife I have, the bearings are, the pivot is a 1/8 inch pivot. It is extremely tiny. Just for reference, I'll show you the test fit card here from Skiff. Let me zoom out a little bit. So when you look at this test fit card, this normal size on the Jack Wolf bearings or pivot is this 1/8 pivot at the bottom here. You can see the size difference. It is absolutely tiny. And then they always use 3/64 balls. Okay, so this knife happens to have a 5mm pivot. So this is the pivot size on this knife. It still has 3/64 bearings. So if you get Skiffs for this, you're going to want 5mm 3/64 bearings. And I think they're 15 ball. So there's 15 balls in there on each bearing. And that's one of the differences between these and the Skiffs. You're going to get 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 balls on this. And with the Skiffs, you're going to get 15. Actually, I can just tell you right here. Yep, 15 count. So you'll get 15. So you'll get an extra 10 ball bearings in your knife if you swap to Skiffs. That in itself is a reason to swap them, just in my opinion. And while you're at it, check out this stuff I discovered at Blade Show. Carbon Honey. It's a new kind of pivot lube. It's really, really good. That's what I have in here. I'm really enjoying it. I haven't used it a ton, so I can't fully endorse it, but I am really liking it. I did reach out to them to see if they want to send me some other ones to check out, but we'll see. So anyway, the reason I swapped the bearings is because when I got the knife, it had a little bit of a, I don't know how to explain it. It was a little loosey-goosey, I guess. I tend to use the word janky for this. That just doesn't sound good. So I'm not going to use that word, even though I just said it. It kind of reminds me of some of the Kaisers of the past, where they would kind of have that little bit of a rattle, so to speak. And then when it closed, it would kind of do this zing, sort of rattle with it. And when I would drop it to my nail, you could hear every single ball bearing. You could feel every ball bearing moving in there. I don't know what was going on. It probably just needed a cleaning. I don't necessarily think these bearings are bad because they're a solid cage. They're brass. Those are both good things. And the balls, they're moving around smoothly. So I don't think there's anything wrong with the bearings. I think maybe it just wasn't lubricated because I remember when I took it apart, it was extremely dry in there. So I think it just needed lubrication. And maybe the pivot was a little tight from factory. So you combine those two things and it just didn't feel right. So I took it apart and I put in Skiffs because if I can add 10 ball bearings, of course I'm going to do it, right? So definitely check out Skiff bearings. Use my code LeftyEDC. You can pick up their test fit card I just showed you. You can also pick up their finger bit, which could come in handy on this knife because you have a spinning barrel situation there, and you might need this to lock down one side. And once I swapped it out, I am really happy with it. It's probably 95% of the way to what I would consider perfect. So that's a high endorsement in my opinion. Nothing's perfect in my world. So 95% is awesome. There is absolutely no blade play in here at all. It took a couple days of fidgeting with it to get the blade to kind of swing down like that. At first it would kind of stay there and I'd have to shake it down, but now it swings down to my nail, but nice and smooth, and then just a couple of shakes or one strong shake and she drops. They are extremely smooth, or it is extremely smooth. When I move the blade like this, I feel nothing. It's just glass. So again, they make a lot of these knives. I don't know how many there are, probably upwards of 1,000, something like that, on these runs. And, when an OEM is putting together that many knives, they're just not going to nail it every single time. They forgot lubrication on this one, I guess, and over-tightened it a little bit. It took me, a couple minutes to get it dialed in. And honestly, I probably could have just drizzled some lube down in here and worked the action and it would have broke in or something. But you know me, I took it apart and skiffed it. So that's my story on the bearings. I think they're fine. I've never had a problem with their bearings in the past. Like I actually like their stock bearings. I do tend to swap them anyway, just because of the ball count. I can add more. And I think that's cool because for your standard customer who doesn't care about bearings, these are great. Solid cage, brass, whatever, right? These are way better than the stamped bearings you would normally get, right? But then to the nerds like us, we can still see a benefit from adding skips. So I think it's kind of a win-win in my opinion. What else did I want to mention about that? I thought there was like one other thing I wanted to mention about the bearings and stuff. I can't think of it, but yeah, it's fantastic. Oh, the disassembly. So one nitpick I would have, and this would be with basically any Jack Wolf locking knife, and it's semi-unavoidable, so just me kind of nitpicking. You need a T10 driver for the pivot. You need a T8 for the inlay, and then you need a T6 for the clip screw and I think there's like a body, structural screw under there as well, like right here. And that's a T6. So you need 3 bits to take this knife apart. And when you're doing the pivot, you usually need the finger bit. So you need 2 T10s. It's just a lot of bits you have to worry about when you're taking it apart. Again, it's semi-unavoidable because they want to have a large size for the pivot so that people don't strip them because they were Loctited. It was heavily Loctited as well. I think I just put a little heat on it and a stubby driver and I got it. But they also increased the depth on the tooling. So your bits will stick in there a lot better now than the earlier versions, which is awesome. So they really did a good thing there, upgrading the hardware. But yeah, the clip, this is another nitpick I have. The clip is mounted from this side. So once you take the scale off, you'll see the clip screw. And it is mounted. Actually, I'll just take it off for you. I'll show you. This should be a T8. So, one, I can show you how much better this tooling is. Like, it is just way better than earlier Jack Wolf. So, I really want to give them props for that. I don't know if I have mentioned that before. I think they've had that upgrade for a little while. But it's good to see. So scale comes off. Here's what it looks like underneath. And you have a T6 here and then another T6. And this is going to be your clip screw. So this one here is a structural body screw. And then this one is the clip screw, which is also helping structurally because it's pulling all this together. But you're going to take your T6 and loosen this out. And you'll see this is one long screw. This is how a lot of internally mounted clip screws are done, which makes sense. So you have that, and then your clip can come off on this side. But my contention with it is extremely thin down here. I'm just concerned that the clips could, shift and stuff like that. I have heard from a couple people that there's been some issues with when they're gripping the knife to do the front flip. And because that front flipper is a little tough to get, they're really bearing down on that clip. And when you're bearing down on this clip, it can shift. So I think a couple people with the Kieranite versions have sort of turned the clip and sort of cracked the scale over here. Now, I don't think that's going to be a problem with the camo carbon because carbon is quite a bit tougher than Kieranite. Kieranite is a pretty, I don't know if it's brittle or just weak. It's not a superstar. I think it's just like an acrylic, right? So it's just like a glue almost. I'm not an expert, so don't hold me to that. But you can see they did they milled into the scale to mount the clip, and there's a good amount of milling done there. I mean, it's not like shallow, right? That's in there pretty good. And then you have a screw pulling it in. And most of the versions are either titanium or camo carbon. So I don't think there's going to be a problem there. But I would just be a little bit cautious if you're doing the front flip right-handed and you're really bearing on that clip. Try not to just wrench on it too hard. Let me get this back in. And if you have the Geeone version, I would be very careful. And just try not to hold that clip for leverage too much. Just want to put that out there because we might as well just mention it and let you guys know so you don't have a problem versus ending up with a problem and then, you know, finding out later. So, but other than that, I like the clip. It works really well. It is a little bit sharp down here. So this point right here, I hadn't noticed it, but then today, right when I was coming upstairs to film this, I had this in my side pocket and I just like lifted my hand up like this on my pants and my wrist or something caught that corner and it's a little sharp. I mean, I could knock that down pretty quick or it's, you know, very rare that you're going to run into that, but it did happen. So I want to mention it, try to give you guys all the information. So let me put this back together and then wrap this up. The inlays are extremely well done as usual. Jack Wolf is always just crushing it with these inlay transitions are fantastic. They are on par with what you would get from Riot, which is a high compliment. They're the best of the best. We don't know who their OEM is, so I can't say. But yeah, the transition there is just non-existent. And that's after I took it off, put it back on once or twice. It's really well done. Everything's blended well together. Here's that clip from the side. You can see it has good retention. It has a good contact point. It pops over your pants a little bit, but I don't think it's going to tear anything up because it's got soft edges all around. So you're going to be good there. It's just this thin area back here that worries me a little bit. But time will tell on that, of course. And Jack Wolf is well known for having excellent customer service. So you don't have to fear having an issue with your knife or anything. They would take care of you if for some reason something happened. So don't worry about that. Yeah, the lock bar is extremely well done. Has a nice thick contact point or lock face, sorry. So it's really nice and smooth. There's no stick at all. Everything feels really good. It's a Jack Wolf, right? There's no play. There's no, there's a little bit of movement up and down actually. But I mean, I'm wrenching on it pretty. If I just do this, not really feeling anything. If I really kind of go up and down, I do. I can test it here. It's about as hard as I want to smack my knife, and no issues there at all. So, what else? I think that's it. Oh, the ergonomics. I guess we could talk about the cutting and the ergonomics. So the ergonomics are really good. It feels nice and comfortable in the hand. I can choke up a little bit because you have this sort of like rounded area here into the sharpening choil, and I can climb up onto that and it feels really good in the hand. I love the size, obviously. And then you have this beautiful blade that I haven't talked about at all. Apologies. This drop point with the compound grind is absolutely gorgeous. You have this beautiful hollow grind back here, and look at the shape of that hollow grind. That is just art right there. You know, they have to grind these by hand. Somebody is grinding these on a wheel by hand, and I mean, that is just fantastic. Just looks gorgeous. The belt satin looks extremely nice on this. I love a belt satin compound grind. I love the dark blasted studs right there. Just a nice touch. Here's the spine of the blade. Nice and thin. You have a flat grind up here, but it's nice and thin. So you're going to get a sturdy, you know, thin, but, you know, tough tip up here. And then you're going to get thin, just slicing machine back here. I have some paper Oh, this one's already cut, so let's use that. I opened some packages with this, and it's really slicey. This is probably the best factory edge I've gotten from Jack Wolf in a little while. That was one of my nitpicks in the past, is just the factory edge being, you know, a little bit crisper would be nice. This is what I'm talking about. This is more like what I'm used to on a Jack Wolf. So I'm glad they addressed that. Or the OEM just, you know, got back on their game there. Get this stuff out of here. Grab some cardboard. Show you guys how it slices through the cardboard. So here is some cardboard. This is just a box. You can see right there. Nice, easy cut through there. I mean, that's butter. Let's try a against the grain cut. All right. Yeah, that's against the grain. That is nice, guys. Sometimes it's a little bit tough getting through those, especially the against the grain. This is super slicey back here with the hollow grind. And then that flat grind is nice and thin as well. You're gonna have an easy time with your utility cuts. The tip is still low enough that I can index it easily and get to that tip. I don't want to cut my tray, so I'm not going to dig all the way through there, but easy on that. I mean, you can push through stuff nice and easy as well. So I think this is a great EDC knife. They did a great job. I think doing these collabs is really smart. It brings other designers into, you know, the world of Jack Wolf. And it's more of a modern take. You know, that's the main difference between this and the Primo Jack and all the other locking knives that came before it. This is a more modern knife, right? So Jack Wolf is kind of coming into that. Instead of just slip joints and a locking version of a slip joint, you have a just cool knife design, right? With the Jack Wolf materials and build. So I think that's really cool. So that is the Jack Wolf Knives Tango. These are going to be $349, so 350 bones for these. And that's pretty standard for Jack Wolf. That's pretty standard, honestly, for titanium, camo carbon, S90V, frame lock, high-end OEM, and a boutique brand. You know, most of the boutique brands are charging $325 to $350 for this build. So that is cool. You can see the Jack Wolf logo here, and then you can see the Cerberus logo here. And then again, you have the steel on this portion of the blade down here. And that is it for billboarding, which is cool. Let me show you the other versions, and then I'll get you guys out of here. So I'm going to put a link to Traditional Pocket Knives website. They do a fantastic job with Jack Wolf knives. Here is the Tango. So you have the Camo Carbon Miami version I mentioned before. Then they have a Dark Matter Polar. I think is the first time they've used that. So Dark Matter Polar. And then it has a Glass Blast on the bolsters. So that's a little different than the Dark Blast. You can see the tone difference. That is how it looks in real life. It has that cool look. Kind of something Chris Reeve does a lot is the Glass Blast. And then you can see the DLC belt satin is absolutely gorgeous on there. And that is true DLC with Jack Wolf, which is cool. Then we have a Kieranite version. This is the one I mentioned earlier. So it has the belt satin blade, Dark Blast on the bolsters, and then the Kieranite Crystal Blue, I think it's called, or Crystal Lake Kieranite on the handles. I like how these look. I've always liked how the Kieranite looks. The material is just a little bit slippery for me. That's my personal opinion. A lot of people just don't care because it looks amazing, and I totally get that. And some people probably just don't have sweaty hands like I do. They have dry hands, and it probably feels fine to them. But I always had issues with the slip joints. And then the locking knives too. So if you're trying to hang on to do a front flipper, or you're trying to hang on to pull the blade up on a slip joint, I would always kind of slip on this. So that's my 2 cents on the Geeone, plus the thing I mentioned about the clip on it. But that version, of course, is available. Then you have a full titanium version with a sunburst pattern. I think it's the first time they've done sunburst, if I'm not mistaken. Looks really cool. Think Grimsmo Rask with that sunburst on it. Looks really cool. And then it has this sort of, think dark bronze hardware. Looks really nice. Belt satin again, which I think is really cool. They're doing just belt satin on a lot of these because, in my opinion, it's the best finish. DLC belt satin, that's the way to go. Now, that is 1, 2, 3, 4 versions. I think there is actually another one. There is the Knife Center exclusive. This one has crystallized titanium and gold. And then it has, did I emphasize that? Gold. And then it has, I think, DLC bolsters and hardware. And then DLC belt satin on the blade. So this one is exclusive to Knife Center. So if you want this one, you have to go to Knife Center. And it's crystallized titanium and gold, which is really nice. And it's the same price, which is really cool. And there is one more. I don't know why I didn't see it on TPK's website. Maybe it's an exclusive on Jack Wolf's site. I'm not sure, but it's this one. This one's gorgeous. I handled this one at Blade Show. Crystallized titanium DLC. So it's DLC'd crystallized titanium, as I understand it. Or maybe that's the blade they're talking about. It's just black crystallized tie. I'm not sure. But it looks really nice. I will say, when I handled it in person at the show, I couldn't really tell that it was crystallized titanium. It just looked like DLC that was then milled with this pattern. It might have been easier to tell if they didn't do the milling, but of course, you know, you want to do the milling. So I don't know why I can't click on this for some reason. Click on that. There you go, Kev. So for me, it was hard to tell that it was crystallized tie, but the fact that it's like a DLC'd or black crystallized tie is really cool. Then you have that glass blast again on the bolsters and the hardware. And then you have a DLC blade. And I'm not sure if this one's belt satin. I think it is, but it could be just a standard DLC. Let's see if I can get a different look. Get a look at the grinds. Yeah, DLC belt satin. You can kind of see it there. Sorry, it's hard to tell. But so those are the 6 versions of the knife. So definitely check those out. Again, check out TPK. I'll also link Urban Cutlery and Lifestyle Shop. They always have the Jack Wolf knives, and anybody else in the description if you have a preference for dealer. Again, you could use my links. It helps the channel, but it is totally up to you. If you have your preferred dealer or you just hate me and you don't want to use the links, that's fine. I don't care. I just like to put it out there because it does help. Now, one other thing I want to note is I can reach around this, and I think that's a really good way to end the video because it's a really nice, that's what she said. So I'm going to do the reach around on the Tango, and I hope you guys have an absolutely fantastic day. These drop at 2 p.m. today, Friday, June 13th. Oh, it's Friday the 13th at 2 p.m. Eastern time. So check it out. It's a cool knife, and it's a cool collaboration if you guys like Cerberus knives as well. So love you guys. I hope you have a fantastic day, and I'll catch you later. Peace.